So we have a twofold thing. The first one we call C3, and that's your character plus your competency equals consistency.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Southwestern Assemblies of God University, Delton Deal. In 12 years as a college head coach, he has 244 wins and was the Don Meyer NAIA National Coach of the Year in 2016. He's led SAGU to an NAIA Final Four, Elite Eight, and 3 Sweet 16 appearances. Coach Deal also spent 5 years as a high school head coach and won the 3A TAB State Championship and was TABC Private School Coach of the Year in 2007. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What's going on?
What's up, Coach?
What's happening?
How are you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you?
Living the dream. Just got done with second period basketball, so
yeah. Getting better, right?
Best part of the day, right?
Yeah, trying to find a way to get better.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for giving up your time and talking hoops with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Tell me a little bit about your spring and kind of what it looks like.
Well, we graduated 6 guys, so very busy trying to find some new ones. So, I mean, that's a big part of what it is. Obviously, spending more time with family now and, trying to figure out, I guess we got to know who we have before we can totally figure out exactly what we're going to do next year. But coming up with a little bit of plan, trying to grow as a coach, find new players, things like that.
Well, I was going to just ask you that. Where do you typically, you say find new players? Mm-hmm. What avenues are you going down? Is it just going to watch tournaments, or there's some other things that you do?
No, I do a little bit of everything. So I'm especially at our level, I think you just got to utilize connections, find, the best players you can, and, the turnover stones. So turn over as many stones as possible. Hope you can find somebody that works. And, for us in our school and how we operate, it's more than just being a good basketball player. It's, being able to fit our culture and who we are. And not only of our program, but our school also, we want people that are going to fit and be able to do what we do here and, love Jesus, things like that.
Yeah, love that. I think you guys do have a special culture at your school, and I've been familiar. I've had some friends or former players come through there. Caleb Feemster is one that comes to mind. It was before your time, but he's an alumni. I asked that question because, so I think as high school coaches, we get hit up quite a bit to get our players involved with things like, and I'm not sponsored by Field Level or anything. So it starts with an N. It's like
CSA.
Yeah. So not sponsored by them at all. But my stepson is just finishing his freshman year. So, they somehow found him. And so we did this presentation with somebody, and I've kind of been through this stuff a little bit, but I am curious, what is your connection, or do you feel like people really utilize those platforms? And if you have no comment, then that's fine too.
No, I mean, I think they're useful. I think that there's definitely times that you can find them. Do I think that everybody goes on there to find all their players? No, I don't think that it's kind of more of a database when you get stuck a little bit. You go look and try to see what you can, see if you can open some doors or maybe, find somebody you're looking for. But to be honest with you, if you're trying to be proactive as a player, especially one that's not prominent, or, you're not really well known, or you're a little under the radar, then nothing's going to be bad for you if you're trying to promote yourself. And, the same way we say in recruiting, you go to an event and you see hundreds of kids and you may not get any of them. But the reality is it really only takes one to change your program. And I think the same is true of the kid. So is it a useful tool all the time? I mean, I don't think that every coach uses it the same. I think some people probably look down on it more than others, but it only takes one. So if you find one, if there's one coach that finds you that likes you and it ends up being right for you, then it was worth it in the long run. So that's how I see it. So I think it's good for both. Yeah.
I think that's the best way I've ever heard it described, in a way that players should look at it right there. That was perfect. And and for at the very least, players get to learn more about the schools and really have, because I think so many players are just oh, I just want somebody to like me or to pay attention. Well, you got to make sure that you're attracting and you are interested in schools where you want to go to school,
For
and it
sure.
actually fits, because I've seen that happen where kids really have no clue what they're looking for.
No, and I'll be honest with you, especially here. So, and with what we're looking for, the kids that end up here that don't really want to be here don't do well. So you don't end up being a good player. You don't end up doing well academically. You definitely don't do well with all the other things that we put on you here with spiritual growth and things like that. So we're really looking for people that want to be all the way here, that want to be all the way in, in the boat, both feet in. And when you're like that, then, that it's funny how it happens. And I've had several transfers, good ones, Division I transfers, all kinds of things of people that probably think they're a little above it or don't like the school or don't like the culture or not really about what we're about, even though they try to pretend like they are. And when you're constantly fighting yourself, I mean, as we go through this, you'll hear this more and more from me. But the biggest thing is, for a kid to be successful, I think you have to be free. You have to be able to be who you are. You have to be able to be, the best version of yourself. And when you do those, that's when you really start to get good. So when you're fighting that, how can you be comfortable on the court when you're fighting who you are already? I mean, you're already fighting it. So we want to try to make sure, like you said, the players need to do the players need to do their research. The coaches do the same research on the kids, and the kids should do the same thing on the coaches in the schools, honestly, because it's about finding good fit for both people, not just, opportunity only, but actually finding where you're supposed to be.
And you've already mentioned a few times about the spiritual growth aspect at your school. So right off the bat, I've got a really good feeling of who you are as a coach, but also what the school is about, because there's tons of private schools, just like the same. I mean, I'm a 5A TAPS, like there's tons of private schools, but is that Christian aspect really a part of it? And man, you're so right on the money. I've seen kids at Faith over the years where we have this biblical infusion throughout, and you have to come in already with a certain level of your faith established, and you're not really questioning what you believe when you come here. But the kids that there's this friction every day that they have to come here with, and it wears on them. It's really tough. So you're right on the money, knowing what you're about when you go to SAGU. Do I want this aspect in college of spiritual growth and mentorship? You got to know that before you get there.
For sure. And so we're really honest with it from the beginning, because college basketball is already stressful in the first place. It's your first time you're away from your parents. You have to manage your time. You have to learn how to build good sleep habits. You're eating, you're all the things that you can do that can mess you up in college. When you're first away from your parents, you finally feel like you have some freedom. Well, we have chapel 3 days a week here. We have dorm devos at night, and then you get me, who is, I'm the half preacher coach. I don't know. You're going to hear it a lot from me too. So, everything we're about is really, centered around those things. And so, from the very beginning, it's the first thing I tell recruits. It's the very, I'm always saying, I went to ministry school out of high school instead of going to play in college, because I knew I was going to coach. I kind of knew I wanted to coach already. I went to ministry school. I wanted to make sure I took care of that before I got into coaching and then I actually coached the TAPS right out of that.
I saw that.
Yeah. When I was real young. So, but that's the center of who I am. It's why I do this. It's a ministry, not just coaching. And, I think we're successful because we spend time on that stuff. I really think it matters. And, it's who we are. So I tell every recruit from the beginning, like, this is who we are. It's not I'm not saying, hey, are you going to be okay getting through it here? No, I'm saying, tell me about your faith. Like, tell me what you think, so we can have, and if we can have good, not everybody's going to be, on the same level spiritually. Sure. But we definitely want to be able to have conversation and open-ended. I'm extremely relational. So that's the big thing. If you can do that, and you can be respectful, and you can be here, and we can have relationships and talk about it, then it's going to be okay. And we're going to hopefully grow you, and we're going to increase that spiritual development that you already have. Yeah.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
And you nailed it earlier. You said that you want them to be the best versions of themselves. I think you and I would both agree that when all aspects of your life are in line, And so it can't just be basketball and academics, but also your relationship with Christ. When that's in line, you really do get to be the best version. I would imagine that when players are all moving in that direction, that your team culture is better, that they're more selfless, and they probably work harder, and they're more authentic with why they work hard. So it just, to me, it sounds like it's a great path to be on as a coach and a team.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little spiel here. This is going to sound like I'm my recruiting spiel, but I'm going to tell you because you're nailing it on the head.
Let's bring
this
it.
is really what we are. So, I'm really big on joy. All we talk about is joy, joy, joy. Play free. And I say, we say we don't believe. I don't believe that God determines who wins and loses basketball games. I feel like that's kind of a little bit over the top. I think, he loves people on both teams. If this guy's praying more than this one, is he going to make you win? No. But what I tell my guys is, I really do say this. I don't believe that he's going to determine outcome, but I do believe that he will empower you to be the best version of yourself if you let him. And if you are operating at your peak performance, at best level of yourself, you're going to be hard to beat because you're playing free and you're being the best you are. And I know you're already talented because we did that. So the basis of our program, everything, we have a twofold thing. And this might be, I'm going to try to do it fast, but I
You're good. Keep going.
But so we have a twofold thing. The first one we call C3. And that's your character plus your competency equals consistency. So what does that mean? That your character, who you are, your relationship with Christ, how you go about your daily life. Do you look people in the eye? Do you treat people with respect? Do you treat women with respect? Do you treat, teachers with respect, your teammates, all these things? How do you deal with those parts? That's got to stay at a really high level. And then obviously your competency, your skill level also has to be high. It's basketball. You can't be bad. But I think if either one of those are off kilter, exactly what you just said. You need them both to be at a high level in order to sustain consistent success. You can have short-term success. You can have some success with one or the other. But the reality is, in anything you do in life, whether you want to be a businessman or a basketball player or a father or a husband or whatever it is you want to do in your life, to be consistently successful, both got to align. So we have a twofold thing. We do the first part is that we really spend a lot of time individually at the beginning of the year, like working on each kid. And then have you ever read Coffee Bean by John Gordon?
Not yet. Not yet.
Coffee Bean's awesome. I'm about to kind of give it away a little bit.
Okay.
So we have this thing, the C3, and we take care of that once we get individually. And then we have this thing called, we've really focused on that the last 3 years. It's really elevated us. And it's, let's say you have a pot of water that's boiling, right? And that's just adversity or life. There's 3 ways you can handle it, like a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean. You put a carrot into water, the carrot breaks down, gets soft. It's changed by its surroundings. It's malleable. It can be broken down. You put an egg into water. What does the egg do? Hardens itself, right? Protects itself, gets like that. But if you have a coffee bean, you put it into water. The water still changed what happened with the coffee bean, but the coffee bean left the imprint of itself throughout the water, right? It transformed it around. So we're saying if you do that first part, and then we have this mentality of togetherness. When they watch us play, you just see us pour out onto it's like pouring a pot of coffee into a cup. Like you're seeing the whole team just come at you, SAGU basketball as a whole. So when we get to that point, that's when we're pretty good. And the last 3 years we've been really successful. And it's not, I'm not doing anything special or anything like that. I really believe that we're just playing freely and we play with joy. We had all these COVID shutdowns last year. And I just kept saying, guys, we're barely even getting to practice. Just play. This is a game. Love it and play. And we just kept playing well. And I really believe it's because of freedom. And to be honest with you, I got away from it a little bit this year myself because we were so good. And I messed it up a little bit by I got off kilter.
You started overcoaching.
I did start talking about all these things that I've never talked about before to try to win the championship. It's like, nah, it's too much. So when I settled back down, we started playing better again too. It's funny.
Coach. That kind of hyped me up. Like if I think I would have loved to play for a guy like you, but then right now, like let's go work out or do something because that's
do something energetic.
that got me going. I felt myself just forgetting that we're even on this call and just nodding along. But you're so man, so a few directions we could go right there. But I'll take the basketball one of. Because of COVID, I think a lot of coaches, and we run a free-flowing style here where we do value the three-point shot, but we're trying to get the best shot as fast as possible. We play in a lot of space, and with that freedom, I think because of COVID, a lot of you're right. Everybody had to be more simplistic. But from that, they saw the beauty of what basketball can be when you get guys with concepts playing together, making plays instead of just running plays. But then you're right. Sometimes, I mean, I thought just watching the NCAA tournament this year, I just saw so much control happening, and then and handcuffing at times. But then what happens at the end of every shot clock? Yep. Bring a ball screen or get away from him and let him create. But anyway, no, I think you're right on the money.
No, that's big. And I've learned, it's funny, you grow so much as a coach over the years. And, I coached, like I said, I coached in Taps when I was like 20, a long time ago. Head coach when I was really young. I was really bad looking back on it. But,
You've apologized to some players.
But it's funny. I mean, we won. Somehow we won. We did win, but it wasn't because of anything I was doing. I think it's some of the same stuff. But I've realized the more, when I first got to college, and it was really difficult because I had to adjust a lot because high school was, we had good players. And so we won a state championship. We just had all these good players and we were playing crazy and can't really do that as much. And you got to have a little bit more togetherness or poise. And when you got to college, so it stretched me, and I was doing so much at the beginning that it was messing. I think I was overdoing it. Like you said, over coaching. I started to realize the longer I've coached, I don't want to say less is more because details matter and all those things, but there's definitely a point where you've got to be like, man, just play, like we're going to, like you said, concepts and put some things in. And these are we're going to be disciplined in these areas, but I'm also going to give you freedom to be, but not be in this box all the time so that you can still be yourself. So you're not looking at me for every answer, because there's times when I can't give you the answer in some moments. Sometimes you got to be able to answer it on your own. So, really setting them up beforehand. Do your work early is what we say. Yeah.
I always push back a little bit when people make comments like, with free flowing or a freedom based offense, it's going to be messy and undisciplined. I mean, I don't care what you run at the very beginning stages, it's usually messy and while players are finding their way. But I think it's possible too, with having concepts for free basketball where players aren't looking over their shoulder, they're not running an organized action or multiple stages of actions, to still be clean and be disciplined. I would actually argue that the more freedom, maybe this is like our faith, right? The more freedom that we have in our life, the more disciplined we better be, or else it all falls apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, when you let them play free, and this all comes down to getting your players to play unselfishly, to play together, to be on time, to be on target, to do little things like that. If you do those things, then it doesn't matter. When you give them more freedom, there's actually more answers to the questions, because you don't have a pattern that's getting broken up, that you're not sure what to do next, or you're having to go down your checklist and things are getting taken away and you're having a hard time finding the answer. But in freedom, you can find the answer. But the reality is it's all about how you're playing. So we were very good. We averaged over 16 assists a game the last couple of years, and we've done a really good job moving the ball around without a lot of structure. And it's just because we've had some unselfish players. We've been willing for everybody to touch it. But if you watch when we struggle, it's because we don't. And so it's not the system. It's just, you can see it. Like there's times we're seeking it out or over dribbling or trying to do too much, and we're never good in those games. And then when we're moving the ball around, we're really hard to beat because we defend all the time usually, but the offense is a hit or miss. So, I mean, there's good and bad. I understand the sloppiness to it. I can understand turning on some of our films sometimes and being like, what in the world? But it's organized chaos. If you know what's going on and you've got it free, then we're good with it. Yeah. And also tell them you can always get it back. So if you come down to do something dumb and you get a stop and you get it right back, it's like it never happened. So we're good. As long as you're doing the other things, I'll let you have some freedom.
Yeah, you're so right on the money. I think one of the most terrifying thoughts behind playing this way or coaching this way is the fact that you're really giving control, in my case, to 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Yours are a little bit older, but still you're giving a lot of control to them. But the fun part is you're right. Like, it's about their decisions that they're making. And you try to show them how different decisions can influence and help their possession. Mm-hmm. But that's where the coaching piece instead of just, you did the wrong play, you went to the wrong spot, instead of teaching from that negative standpoint that I feel like happens a lot when you're running a lot of actions, you really get to, hey, right now, fellas, I don't think we're making the best decisions that we can make. So when we get to the paint and we do draw people, instead of doing something difficult or trying to force one, eyes up, find a teammate, look for one mores, and then reattack. But then at the end of the day, you're right on the money. Don't worry. It's in the 13th Warrior is one of my favorite movies from back in the day. Antonio Banderas, and Antonio is hacking away at this one guy, just beating him. And one of the Vikings come up and says, "Hey, don't worry, little brother. There's more." Like that type of mentality. Don't keep hacking away at something bad or thinking about something that happened. Don't worry. There's more opportunities. I think that frees guys like you and I up in our coaching.
Yeah, and I like that. That's one thing you said is, the being able to coach positively with correction and get the discipline out without it having to be, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. So that's a balance. It's a big thing. I'm reading this book called Unoffendable. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, but it's talking about, it's pretty good. You should, it'll mess you up.
I love it. Any books that you're thinking about throughout this talk, mention it, because I'm building a list.
Okay. Yeah. And I got this from actually Aaron Smith at Panola College, who a good friend of mine, but he was just telling me about this a couple of days ago. So I just started reading it. It's funny, but it's talking about pretty much, do we have the right to really be angry? And a lot of times we say righteous anger is actually out of selfishness and not actually out of righteousness. And it's because we think things are right. And one analogy uses, like, you're in a parking lot and a guy's turning in and you're like, man, look at this guy not seeing me. He's coming in the parking lot. He's wrong. Then the next day you're turning in and there's a guy sitting there and you're like, why is this guy sitting in the parking lot? He's wrong. But both times you looked at yourself as you're right. And so I'm like, how do I put this into my team to where, am I really getting angry because of something that I should be angry about? Or am I getting angry because I feel like I got the answers and they aren't doing it right and I'm mad at it? Or is there more to it than that? That's always deeper than that. So I want to find a way to positively get them to where we need to go. Be disciplined, and you're going to have to be hard on them if you want them to be disciplined, but there's a spirit behind it and a love behind it and things like that, to where they know, like, we're doing this because we're getting you to this point, and how do I communicate that clearly? That's why one of the reasons that I like the freedom stuff, that's why we spend so much time on culture and so much time on relationships and way less time on basketball. Because when we just film, get better. I mean, that stuff, it just becomes overwhelming. And then the kids get tight. And then what are they doing? They're worried about messing up what they just watched on, instead of just playing. Like, if you just play, it's going to work itself out. See the thing you messed up? Well, let's make sure we play hard all the time. And if you do that and you're engaged in it, then I think we're going to fix a lot of these problems. And if we don't, then we'll get a little bit more into it. But that starts with me. So I got to do a better job, and we got to do better. So that's it. Yep.
You nailed it right there at the end. How, if any coaches are listening, man, I want to play freer style. I want to play in transition more. I want the ball to move more. I want less plays being called and more just players making plays and finding actions. What you just said, I believe, is it. It starts with us allowing them to do so. And that's a hard shift. I mean, really, especially those of us that we call ours controlled chaos. You call yours organized chaos, but like there's a chaotic pattern to it, but you have to allow them to find a way, fall and make mistakes, not rescue and pull them right out, like parenting, right? Like let them fail a little bit.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game.
A lot of culture talk a second ago, and how does that drive the performance of your program?
Yeah. I think it's everything. It's the center of everything. So culture is a really buzzword right now. Everybody likes to use it, but to be honest with you, it is what it is. So, I know that some people say rather say other things, but for me, especially being Christ-led and Christ-centered in our program, setting the tone in the locker room and togetherness and how we talk to each other and how we communicate. This past group that I just had, that I've had I've had some of them for several years and some of them for a short time, but the togetherness we've had the last 3 years is really why we've been so successful. We've made deep runs. We've won a lot of, we've cut down a lot of nets. We've done a lot of things, but it's not, we're talented and we have good players, but the togetherness and the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the unselfishness. And, I'm such a joy person. I always say I want my team to reflect my life. And I want my life to be joyful. So I want my team to be joyful. Every coach is different. So, and you know what? There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Some people like going into practice and fighting. Some people like to go in there and challenge and get them tough. But for me, I need to just go in there. I want to get in the boat with you. I want to grab an oar next to you and row with you. And I just want to do it together and work on it. But if we're constantly at odds, I'm not as good of a coach. I can't get the most out of you. I don't know why. I've tried it a bunch of times. And so now when I'm looking for players and stuff, I'm like, who's going to fit in our culture, want to talk about these deeper things, want to get into life, want to have these life conversations so that when we get on the court, we're playing for each other at a high level, and that's it.
How do you know that in a player? What are the things that you do to find that out so that you're not fooled by one conversation that you have with the kid or the family? And how do you find that out?
Well, I don't think, first of all, you can't, I don't have the perfect answer because we always have some, you're always going to miss or
not be fooled. I don't mean by
I completely understand.
But I think everybody tries to put their best foot forward and maybe even with the best intentions, they try, but then ultimately, when times are tough, that's when you really find out what you're about.
I'd say it's a couple things. One is you try to be spirit-led. That's one. So try to get a good understanding if you can. But number two, I'm really, since I love talking, I like this kind of stuff. I'm really, really big on making them uncomfortable a little bit to where they have to speak a lot. So the very beginning of our conversation, I'll be like, tell me what you're looking for. Now you tell me about yourself. Now you tell me about your faith. Now you tell me. And so over and over, they think I'm calling to recruit them, but the whole conversation is you talk. And then when we're done, then I'll tell you but I want to hear you articulate. And I want to see, is this how are you responding to this? Are you enjoying it? Are you getting excited about it? Does it, are we meshing together? Those type of things. And if we can get to that point, then, I think that we're at least open enough to where I can look you in the eyes. I think, one thing is you want to break the wall. You got to break down and get the trust. People put up that wall. They don't want to trust people. If you can break that down, you can get deeper. So I try to do that right away. I'm really vulnerable with myself too. I'll tell them, if they ask me a question, I'm very honest. I don't try to hide anything. And I'll be like, yeah, like I just told you, I messed up a little bit this year talking about I'll tell the recruits, I'll be like, yeah, this year we spent time. I was talking about winning all these championships and I'd never done that before. And I shouldn't have done it because it's not who I am. But as soon as they see my barrier break down, I think I can get theirs down. And if I can't, then that's a little bit of a red flag, and I want to see if we can. And even if we're a little less talented, and also being consistent with your team once they get on campus and letting the people that are doing the right things play, all that stuff, as best you can. So,
yeah, I do want to celebrate how open you were about being vulnerable, noticing that maybe the main thing stopped being the main thing this last year. And I think if all of us were honest, the years where we were maybe a little bit frustrated at the end or disappointed in ourselves, most likely it's because we're resulting most of the time or really focused on some outcome at the end instead of the journey and the process. So I appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah. One big thing we say around here is it's funny. This profession is very difficult, coaching. It's a very emotional profession and it's very results oriented. And when you don't want to be that way, you play a game, ours is 40 minutes, you play 39-minute, 59-second game and a guy heaves a shot from half court. And if it goes in, you failed. And if he misses it, you did awesome. But the reality is you did the exact same thing. Whether he made or missed that shot, the game was the same. Nothing was different. He either made it or he didn't. So how do we make sure that we stay focused on the process of what we did and not just be driven by results that can be sometimes, you can obviously affect results, obviously, but I'm just saying there's sometimes that things just happen and sometimes you lose. And if you can play a great game and not win, you can play a poor game and win.
Yeah.
So, you got to be able to see, and you can do it right. There was times this year where we were winning and I was like, something is off. And it really was me, or a little bit of two things. It was me and it was, we had a little bit of a struggle with fifth year COVID seniors was hard for them too. And I didn't recognize it early enough. They didn't want to, the grind stuff, the daily stuff was hard. People that thought they were going to be done and were like, you know what, I'll come back and play again. And then, we're just waiting to get to the end. And when we got to the end, we did play well. I mean, we ended up going deep in the tournament and stuff like that. But it was just throughout it was difficult. And so, how can we get through that? And how can we recognize those things? And how can we make sure that we're focused on the culture, on the right things, on the daily things so that our results will follow?
I've never thought about that, right? What you said about the fifth year guys actually struggling with the day-to-day grind that college basketball is. Because in my mind, I played for 4 years, and in my mind, I think, fifth year would have been great. I would have gotten bigger, stronger, older, deeper into the system. But when you think about all of the stuff that you have to do with that, it doesn't seem, and that's what that's what high school kids don't get.
And you can if you redshirt or something, or if you're there for you're expecting it, but when you think you're done, and then you're like, let's run it back, and you're like, I can, okay, it was fine. They were good. I mean, they're great people. They did everything. I mean, they tried. It took a minute, and it was hard for us in the middle of the season. It was, and they'll tell you too. So, I mean, oh my God, like I said, we're open book around here. So we talk about it all, and they'll tell you too. We had some weird stuff happen off the court, but it was one of those things where and I think, part of it's probably a little bit of I talked about too much. We were focused on the wrong thing for a little bit, and I probably put too much pressure. The year before, I told you, I was like, we don't even practice. Let's just play. We went to the Final Four. I'm like, whatever. And then this year, I'm like, we can win them all. We can win everyone. We can win all the rounds. I was like, oh my gosh.
I had a similar realization when the year March, COVID happened in March, and we didn't see our returning players the rest of the school year, just shut down.
Yeah.
And so I didn't train them at all that spring. I gave them online workouts to do, hoped that they got them done, but really had no method or anything of accountability. We met a little bit during that summer, and then school, we actually started 6 weeks later. And all that to say, the season went fine. The players were good. We ended up, we went to the semifinals again, like in 5A taps. But then this spring, I'm thinking about early morning weights, a participation. What am I doing with them in second period that I got to get them ready? And then, but I forget quickly, like 2 years ago, I literally did nothing with them, and they were just fine. Are they as good as they could have been? I don't know, but they were just fine. So
it's funny you say that. We went to the Final Four, and I come back, we're like, next year we're going to be on top. And I was like, we just went to the Final Four. The best season I ever had. One of the best seasons we ever had. I was like, and I'm here like, but next year we're going to be even better. And I was like, golly, man, like, just love on the kids, let it do, the results will come.
but you hear from it's hard because the comparison game is dangerous, and it's real. And you hear about other high schools that are doing this and that during the spring and summer, and I'm just, you wonder, like, hey, what's the fine line between doing everything, doing my best for them, but then also the other side of it is not caring at all and just letting them do whatever they want.
Bad too. Yeah,
I'm struggling with that line.
And we got to find the line for ourselves. Like I said, every coach is different. Yeah. Some coaches are great because they're in control all the time, and that's what they do, and they're great at it. I'm not that person. I'm like a creative thinker. So if I'm in here like trying to boom, 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 it's going to seem fake after a while because I don't even operate like that. And I'm trying to do it, but I'm not really about it. And, every day I'm going to be trying to be hard on them. But in my mind, I'm like, man, I don't even want to do this. I mean, that's not it. So I did that when I was younger, tried to be a bunch of other people. So, and eventually you got to find yourself and what works for you and what works with your players too, because the players change too. I mean, you don't always have the same type of team. A young team responds different than a veteran team. I mean, that's part of it. So,
You've already mentioned a few books that you're interested in. What are some other opportunities for learning and growth that you've recently found?
I mean, I went to, I've been going to some coaches clinics a little bit more than this last year or so, maybe because I'm losing a lot of players and I'm trying to make sure I'm on top of my things. But I really have a good network of people that I talk to, really try to, self-awareness is part of it. I have a phenomenal athletic director. He pours life into us every day. He's pouring life into me all the time, and I'm asking him lots of questions, and he's helped me a lot. But I have a lot of coaches that are better or older than me that know a little bit more, that I'm willing to call and ask and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. What's something that y'all do, or go down and talk to somebody, or really try to figure things out. So for me, I mean, coaching, I mean, we all think that we got to figure it out, especially when you've had some success. But the reality is, I mean, everything that's been done since the beginning of time almost has been stolen from other people. I mean, like, all the coaches have somebody they took something from. Everybody does. So I just try to make sure that I'm always doing that, trying to pay attention. It's funny, the longer I coach, the less I kind of get into watching as much. I don't know why. That's just for me. I mean, I love basketball, but I think sometimes, especially if you're invested a little bit in it, the stress of being invested in your own and then being invested when you're watching TV. I kind of like watching football a little bit more than basketball, because I feel like it's a
break,
different,
a little bit of a break too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to steal things and take what I can and make sure that, I'm doing what's innovative or seeing trends that work and trying to make myself better and put those in. And, I'm pretty open to change. I don't think I have anything figured out. We had a really great player tear his ACL at the end of the season 2 years ago. His best player, and probably the best player in the country, tear his ACL. And I switched our entire offense that week before the conference tournament, just changed everything, switched it all, and we ended up playing better and we won. So it's crazy how things happen. But, so I'm not married to any one thing. So it's really just growing and trying to become better from everybody I can. I like your stuff too. I paid attention to it.
Not
for real.
You don't have to say that. So, Chris Hill at Dallas Jesuit had a really cool comment. I thought he said at the end of every year, you kind of put that season, it's done. You finish it, and this next one, it's got to be brand new. And I think what he meant by that was, obviously, you're not going to start from scratch, but you want to be careful about carrying over. If that worked that year, we'll just do it again. We'll replicate it.
I did that.
And the years where maybe I was frustrated or it didn't go as well as I thought. How many times is it because this blueprint I just went right on top of with different kids, different athleticism, different schedule. So that was a good nugget.
I think that actually is true even with the same kids. Because one thing that I did is I have the same team carried over, and I just assumed they remember everything we already did. So let's just keep moving forward, when in reality, we started every season, every offseason the same every year, because that's the foundation of what we are. And you're skipping steps because you feel, you can't do that. Don't ever assume everybody's got it figured out. Do what you know is right for yourself and be willing to adjust based on the kids you're coaching. That's it. It's self-awareness. It's a hard thing for coaches. It's a hard thing for me. It's a hard thing for everyone. So, try to make sure you're doing that. But I love what you're saying there. That's really smart.
What's one thing that makes your program different?
I think the faith aspect is a big part of it. So, as Christ-centered as we are, as much as we put into that, and that's in the center of all of what we do. So everything that we do. I make our kids give devotions every day. We rotate it. Everybody gives something. We go through it every day. And, I think that because we are, I don't know. I believe it's good because I believe in it. But, there's a lot more stressors and challenges, I would say, here. There's a lot. I don't know if it's stressors or challenges, but it's just different. You're stretched in different areas because of the way we're trying to get you as a whole person, as a whole body on all these things, not just from me, but you're getting it in chapel. You're getting it from me. You're getting it in the classroom because you're taking Bible classes. All these spiritual things just over and over are being poured into your life. And, I can understand sometimes when the kids haven't been in it as much that it seems like a lot, but I just always tell them, I can't, we can talk about theology and all these things till we're blue in the face, but I can tell you my experience and how things have changed me. And if you allow this stuff to work and you take nuggets and you plant seeds and you do these things, then it's going to make you better. And then having them see that when they're taking care of that part of their life, how that affects their basketball game. I think that some kids don't get it, but how clear-minded you are and how free you are in your regular life 100% translates to your game. And so we want to focus on those things. And so I think that we spend a lot of time on that. And I really think that in tough situations or whenever it gets to elevated winning time, we don't have to change a lot or we don't have to refocus a lot because we're just playing free still. And, we've been fortunate enough to win 3 conference tournament championships in 5 years since I've been here. It's hard to win that thing. There's a lot of luck and stuff involved. but I really believe that we just kind of can play free all the time. And so it gives us a good chance. I mean, I think we got lucky and won a few of the games, but I think our kids play freely in them. And I think it's because of the work we're doing off the court that really makes a difference.
We tell our players here that when life seems just to be really hard and or cloudy, and you just feel a ton of weight, like you got to check your walk. You got to, because most of the time when not that not that just because we're believers that means life is great. No, like COVID hit everybody. Family thing, it hits everybody, and sin and all that stuff. But the times when it just seems to be too much, and you keep mentioning playing free, when your mind is just cluttered, most of the time it's because our walk is off. We're not spending time in the Word as much as we were before, or we've started to watch or listen to something that is just flooding us with the wrong idea. And it's kind of encouraging for me at a school like I'm at to hear that at your level, at a college level, that there are programs out there that talk about these things and struggle with these things just like we do.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And like I've been blessed I've been in Christian education for a long time. So I was, coached at Bethesda Christian School, went to York College, which is another Christian school, and then came here. And, we've had the same, center of focus the whole time. But, I've just come to believe, and having success follow, I've been successful. Things have happened, and God's convicted me a few times, and I've got away from it a few times. Like I've got away from it. And every time I've done it, the same struggles they're going through. I had to check myself one time because I was like, I'm doing all this and they're not. And I was like, you know what? You're messing up the same way they're messing up. And it changes your perspective to where, okay, whenever I feel like I'm off, what do I do? Well, am I making sure my players know that they can do these things when they feel off too? Do they even recognize when they feel off? Sometimes, like you said, we had a couple of kids that were really dealing with some identity stuff this year, and it was like basketball player identity, but it was coming from life identity. Like, oh my gosh, I know I played defense and was a great facilitator, but now I need to score. And it's like, because that's what I need to be, because it's a second year. I should be better this year. And it's like, well, I mean, what does better look like? What does that even mean? Like, are you still being yourself? Just be true to what you are, and it's going to look the way it's supposed to look, whether it's today or tomorrow or down the road. I mean, you don't know what it's supposed to look like. You're making decisions on end results that you don't even know that that's where you're supposed to be. Same way we deal with our life, same way we deal with, when you get a new job or pick what school you're going to or all those things. I mean, you don't know what the end result is, so you have to work and focus on being the best version of yourself now. That's it.
And those are lessons, man, that it's just going to be so huge for them later on, because basketball will stop. But that identity and the idea of I should be doing more. I mean, I felt that as a coach at Grapevine Faith. Like, I haven't felt led or called to do or be anywhere else. But, I think that comparison or that whisper of you're not enough, I think that's a huge part of what we do as coaches. But those lessons, man, that's huge for them and later on in life.
Yeah, and this is the hardest. I mean, that's one of the things with society now and how things are, and the accessibility of social media and all the things that are going on. It's really hard just to be and grow, because everything, like you said, comparison, is the thief of joy, right? Like you start doing those things, and all you see is you see this, you see that. You're like, well, I bet they're thinking I should probably do more now. Or I'm here and I should be doing this. And it's like, no, you just need to be who you are, and it's going to be okay. It's going to work itself out. And like I said, I've done these things too. And it's funny, even when I got my jobs and how I ended up here is a crazy God story. But, at the time I'm like, I got to do more. And then finally I was like, you know what? Remember why I do this. I'm here. And then the opportunity opens like 2 days later, like that stuff opens up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just needed to give it to you. Oh, my bad. That type of stuff.
I think those stories are just they're more common than we think, especially when we believe what we believe. And my journey to faith is kind of similar. I was at McKinney High School, and one of the big high schools there opened up. I was a varsity assistant with Wes Watson. They opened up, and I just didn't feel like that's a job I should go for. I just, and I'd already kind of decided that spring, that I was at the place where I was supposed to be, at least for another year. And I really prayed about that job and didn't want to go at all. So I took my name kind of out of it and out of the hat. And I had Wes Watson say, "Are you sure you really want to do that?" And my high school coach, Tommy Thomas, call and say that's a huge mistake. And I just basically said, Lord, I'm done looking, and I'm very content with where I'm at. And a coaching buddy called me and said, "Hey, have you heard of Grapevine Faith before?" And I said, "No, I never have." And I looked online, and that hit me strong. And then I'm here, but it's just similar stories for sure.
Yeah, no, that stuff's crazy, and God opens doors in miraculous ways. So
yeah.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com.
I think it's common knowledge at high school that we have to deal with players' confidence quite a bit because they're younger, they're still becoming. But I've just been amazed at having these conversations at how often college coaches still have to deal with players' confidence and help them out. So how do you, at your level, build confidence in players?
Yeah, I actually think it might even be. I mean, there's a chance it could be more challenging in college because you have kids that are coming from finding the confidence in high school and then it getting broken and taken away again and then having to find it again, or being, all these guys around you were all good players in high school. Everybody that's in college was a good player in high school. So now you're here, you don't get to play. It gets broken down. Now you're here, you don't shoot the ball as well because it's a little tougher, or your skill level doesn't translate the way you thought it was, or you're not as big as you were, like you can be a 6'3" post and be dominating, and then come to college and be like, man, everybody's 6'8". I can't do any of the stuff there's all these things. So, and like I said before, honestly, it's the same. I feel like I'm regurgitating the same thing, but I really believe it's relationship and it's freedom and it's finding identity in other things other than what you think it should be. And because when your expectation is set one way, there's only one thing that's going to make you happy. And then the reality is, once you get to that, you know what happens? The bar just moves. It's not actually done. You're like, I want to, be the leading scorer on the team. And you go and you do that. You accomplish it. Well, guess what you're going to do right when you do that? Well, now I want to be the leading scorer in the district, or I want to be the leading scorer. And then next thing you know, I want to be all state. And then next thing you know, I want to be, and it's the bar never moves. So you can keep, with confidence, especially, it's so results driven. Like we said, it's just like coaching. It's results driven. And I think we have these same struggles, but when you can become more process driven and more internally driven, and then I think the biggest thing of it all is the word I used a minute ago, identity. I think identity is huge. And these kids, especially now, are just torn down based on who they are by whether things worked or not. And so can we get them out of it? I don't know. A lot of times it takes a lot of conversations. Sometimes it takes getting in the gym. One thing we always say is when you go to take a test at school, if you didn't study and the teacher goes, we have a test today, and you're like, that moment we've all had, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And so you're looking around and they give the test, your heart's pounding and you're nervous. But if you studied and you did it, you'll be like, oh yeah, give me the test. I'll go, you just want to do it. So you put the work in, do it early, and make sure you're prepared. And if you're doing those things, then that takes a lot of it away. I think that helps with your confidence. But even then, sometimes the results don't match exactly what it looks like in the timing that you expect. So it's just make sure you're true to who you are, identify with who you are, be confident in who you are, and then let your work speak for itself. And eventually it's all going to come together, you would hope.
What's the balance for a coach? Because I'm thinking to conversations I've had where I actually might be the one raising the bar for them in a sense of this year's done. You did awesome, phenomenal year. Now let's set these goals. But I hear what you're saying, that not being okay with who you are and where you're at in that moment. What's the difference, or what's the balance between, setting goals and striving for something, working towards something, but then, being on that wheel that players just can't seem to get off?
Yeah, I don't know that I have the right answer to that, because I think it's give and take. Yeah. I read a book one time called Burn Your Goals. There's another one for you. Burn your goals.
That's
and,
right.
They used to write down, there is some people at North Carolina, I think soccer something, I can't remember exactly what they did.
Yeah, you're right.
They would write down the goals and then throw it in the fire and burn it up. And it was all about process driven stuff. And it was good stuff. And I mean, goals aren't bad. So it's obviously not bad to strive for something like that. I just think that you have to be able to also, when you're giving that to your kids, also tell them we're going to strive for this. But if it doesn't look exactly like this, I'm not disappointed in you. I'm not you didn't fail. Let's just put the work in to try to get there. And if we finish these things and we get to these points and we can get to there, and if they achieve it, then that's a win. It's awesome. And you can be like, look what the work did for you. And if they don't be there, to be like, yeah, but look how much better, at these things, and you picking little things to make sure that you're encouraging them on the back end of it with things other than just the goals. Because I think the hardest thing for us coaches is you set the goals. What happens if you can tell it's about to fall short? Like, are we aware enough to not be angry? That's back to that word I'll tell you in the book I'm reading about being angry. Are we getting angry because they didn't do what they were supposed to do, quote unquote? Or can we still be like, how can I either encourage them, challenge them, or push them, to do more? Or did they do the most they can and they just don't quite have the ceiling I was expecting? Because that happens too.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they're just not, sometimes they just don't have the capacity to get to where you thought they could. And you got to be able to make sure that they're okay when they realize that, because it's our job to make sure that they're not, their life's not torn apart because they thought they could be an All-American and they couldn't quite get there. They're still a good player, but not really All-American status. And doesn't mean they're less valuable or anything like that. So, I mean, yeah.
I think too, we have to, we help them see the potential and what they can be. But if it just ends with, I almost thought about, like, I read Bird Your Goals, and I like the idea of, writing down what those goals are, but then on another piece of paper, how do you, what's the work that has to happen, guys? How do you think, if this is what you want, how do you think you get there? Because I think I've been guilty of, even in my,
that's good.
Even in my own life, I like to get a little leaner. I like to put on a little bit. That's my goal. But then there's no follow through. There's no work with it. So almost like we burn this one. Okay, guys, this is the one that matters now. I may kind of mess with that a little bit, because I don't want to be the guy that just is helping them realize where they'd like to be, what they like to see happen, but then not helping them at all with the follow through or giving them a plan. Because then the worst thing, and I feel like I do it all the time as a coach, is I know what they want. I sit here patiently, watch them either do it or not do it, the work. And then at the end, I come back around and be like, you know what? You really didn't put in the time necessary to get that. That's not helpful. And so I'm just trying to kind of, I guess, work my way through with my own players. How can I help them? And that might be a way.
No, that's big. No, that's huge. And I think, you nailed it. I probably should have said that too. You really nailed it. It's setting goals, but then setting process and making sure you're doing both, so that one way or another, if there's an easily achievable thing for them, so that they can see success. Because if you say, this is where we want your end goal to be, but we can do that by doing this 3 times a week. Well, if they do their thing 3 times a week, that's a win. If they didn't get to the goal, then they didn't get to the goal. But you did the work to try to get as close as you could. And now we can still praise you, but also push you to get somewhere. And that's good. That's really good, actually.
And maybe it takes clarity too on our part of actually knowing how, okay, this is what you say you want.
That's true.
I better have a really good answer or a good roadmap. Coach, how do I do this? Well, why don't you try this? Man, you can't just throw stuff up against the wall. True. So I think maybe that I always try to think of why don't myself or more coaches do this? And maybe coaches out there are doing this, and it's just maybe an area that I'm weak in. But because there's an accountability that I have to, once I know what their goals are and we've come up with the process, there's accountability on my side to help them get there. And then if it's not working, man, I think as coaches, we have to have answers. Not perfection, but answers to what they're going through.
And that means we got to put thought and process into it. I like to do that before we have our meetings with our players. It's just, really put some thought into each kid and don't just come in there and wing it, so when they say something, you'd be like, well, I hear what you're saying for yourself. Like, I just had to have this one the other day. He's saying what he thinks he's the next role. And I'm like, okay, I think you're getting ahead of yourself a little bit. I think you're, where you're looking at yourself. I think there's a smaller step we can look at right now as the current goal. instead of trying to get to when you're 4 years down the road and you feel like that's where you can be right now. Like, I think you're putting too much and you're not going to, it's going to, it could hurt, end up hindering your development because you're looking too far down the road. So let's just pick a couple of smaller things and then work together on how we can push you towards that end goal you want to get eventually, but get you to where I see you at right now. And then if I have a little bit of a plan, then we can work together and we can come up with a solution.
I usually get to ask this question to coaches that maybe are 30 to 40 years in. So I know you still have 20, 30 years left in you, right? Like you've got a ways to go, but you're a transformational guy, I could tell. And you've already alluded to some things that you might not have done well when you were younger, first starting out. So if you could go back, like what's something you would do differently starting out?
I don't think I learned. It took me a long time to start really trying to learn because I had some quick success when I was young, and I was only assistant for 1 year on the women's side with my old high school coach one year. And so I was, I got thrown into the fire as like 20 or 21 as a head coach at a private school. And I'm like just coaching. So everything's just raw energy and we're just going to work hard. And I don't even know what I was doing back then. I saw an old practice play and I was laughing at myself. But I was like, I think everything I did was trial by fire. I think I could have leaned on some people, pushed myself a little bit harder to develop. I talk to some coaches sometimes and I don't know if there's right or wrong because it's worked out for me. I think I did what God, wanted me to do, but there's some value in being an assistant for a minute. There's some value in learning from more than one person. There's some value from seeing it from different angles. And because I have one viewpoint that I've kind of operated my whole coaching career under, and I kind of wish I would have saw a little bit more of some things. I think I could have got ahead of some of the problems that I caused for myself by just asking different people or watching different ways people coached and trying to develop that, aspect a little bit better as to the X's and O's and how you deal with player accountability. I didn't think I was very good at that at the beginning, and also at, being able to adapt, and not just think this is what I got to do. When I got to college, it stressed me like crazy because, I'd done the same, but I had a good team, but I'd done the same stuff. We were 1-3-1 and trapping everywhere and blowing things up. And I got to college and that corner three ball wasn't like in high school. I was like, the corner three, they're not going to make that much. We're good. I got to college and I was like, man, they don't miss.
No, that's a layup. That's a layup.
I was like, this isn't working anymore.
I love when teams 1-3-1 is because I just tell her, if we are disciplined enough to get the ball past one defender should never be able to stop us from getting the ball where we want to go. That want it to go. And if we put shooters there, it's just
it's over with. And so it's funny. My first 4 years of college as a head coach, I tried 4 different things because I tried my way from high school. Terrible, didn't work. The next year I was like, this team over here is whooping us. I'm going to teach it that I'm going to do all pack line because that's what he does and that works. I had no idea how to coach it. No idea. So I'm trying to learn, but it was not natural for me. Yeah. I'm like getting caught in between so my players weren't good at it. The next year I was like, you know what? Forget that. I'm going to press. So I pressed the whole next year, 97, 95 every game. I got tired of that. I was like, no. And finally, I found my own little hybrid system stuff that worked for me. But, that's it. So looking back, I just took a long time to really, and I think self-reflection is a big part of it. I think that's something I've got pretty good at over the time is recognizing when I mess up and not being too arrogant to think, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. Yeah. No, it's like, maybe it's like, okay, if something's wrong, and there's a big issue, then it's on me. But I think I could have done that earlier if I would have got a little bit more advice. I just kind of did my own thing in my own little bubble for too long. So it is what it is.
It's a great reminder for assistant coaches out there, high school or college, whatever level that are feeling a little bit antsy. There is some value to being at one place or being in that role for a little while because you get to learn from the mistakes of others. Instead of when, that in that head position, when a season goes bad, it's all your fault. And that's, that as a head coach, that pressure's tough. Rick Torbett said, it takes 10 years to figure out who you are as a coach. Yeah. And it kind of sounds like, you went through those years of dabbling with different things until you found the style that you like.
And it's not even the X's and O's. It's also just the being a leader, like a true, consistent leader. Like it changes. And I was all over the place for a while. So my heart was in the right place most of the time. So I feel like there was some good things that happened, but I was so far. I mean, some of the things that I look back on my early college teams, especially when I'm looking back at what we were doing, and we were okay, but not as good as we probably should have been. I think I caused a lot of those problems. I think a lot of that way, I didn't cause it, but I think I definitely promoted it. They say if you allow it, you promote it. I feel like there were some things I was allowing, some things I was, maybe emphasizing that was a little bit ridiculous. And, I just didn't see the big picture of it all. I was really in a hurry and just saying we should be doing this and talent, and team building. I wasn't good at that, especially as a college perspective when you recruit. Team building is a huge thing. You can't always control it in high school, trying to make sure you got right people in right places and the little things that matter, and not just seeing somebody can dunk the basketball and think they're amazing. Like you gotta be a good basketball player. Like that's only part of it. Yeah. So I mean, those are the things I probably need to, I wish I would have got a little bit earlier, but what I went through was good for me.
It's a part of your journey too. I feel like I've had a really good understanding or a grasp of, X's and O's with you and as a leader, but the speed round will allow me and whoever listens to this to know you as a person even more. All right. You ready?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Sheesh. Butter pecan.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock for sure.
Texting or talking?
Texting, 100%.
Nice. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
I got to figure out.
I'm tough on that one.
I got to figure out what it means when people answer either one, because I've gotten some invisibility. What does that mean?
I might change that. I don't know. I'm really caught on that one.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to? And you are just observing the time period. You don't have to live there.
Oh, I'd like to see the time of Jesus.
Nice.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Coach Drew said he liked to go see some of he's a big history and he loves studying battles and world wars and stuff. And
I'm into that too.
And he said it, but then he goes, but I don't want to be in the battle.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, I was like, there's some times that I don't think I want to be honest with you. That's a
great thing. Favorite childhood TV show?
Fresh Prince.
Oh yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Two more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
6.
Nice.
A lot.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I'm about to go to my 4th here after this talk, and
I got quite a bit. I make a pot at home and then go to Starbucks on the way to work. And my wife was like, "Why did you do that?"
Yeah. There is something about the Starbucks coffee. I don't know what they put in there.
I don't know what it is.
It's not the same as home. It's not the same.
It's not.
Last one: Godfather or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
You could say neither if you want.
Star Wars.
No, okay.
Star Wars.
The Force is strong, and there's a lot of good parallels there. This was incredible. I just felt myself, I like getting to talk with coaches that I would have loved to play for or even work for or work with. And I just think you're one of those guys, but this was awesome for me, man.
Same, man. And like I said, I really have paid attention to you. I like your system. We talk about it a lot, actually. Coach Sons, he used to coach a private school too. Our women's coach here, he used to coach at Bethesda with me and a bunch of Colleyville Covenant, a bunch of places. So we paid attention to you a lot. He likes to. We like how you play. We like the 3-ball's fun. So your style is fun. I think I told you at an AU tournament a couple years ago. I liked you. I like the way you coach your team. You really do a good job.
Man, I appreciate that. And the 3-ball, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, because even though we've had, I can hear the other team, the other coach saying all they do is shoot threes. At that point, we know we got them, because that means the paint is going to be wide open, which is ultimately where we really want to be. And, but it's fun, and we could probably talk forever on that stuff. But
for sure,
man, I appreciate the kind words and your time, and this was great.
Yep. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.